part of my summer gloves collection, and of the three, the one that I've been evaluating, the one that I'm going to personally keep, primarily because of fit, is the relatively new Held Sambia Pros. The Held Sambia line has been around for a while. It's their kind of summery adventure touring glove. They've added some new things to in the last few years, like their standard air and dry 2-in-1 Gore-Tex chamber glove. And then fairly recently, I want to say sometime last year, they came out with the Sambia Pro. And I do think that this represents a nice move forward from the Sambia in many ways. I did own a pair of those at one time as well. And again, these are the ones that so far, after riding in this, the Racer Guide, and the Alpine Stars Halo, these are the ones I'm keeping, primarily because of fit. And speaking of fit, so these are a 9, or a what Hal generally considers a large. I measured out. I usually wear a 9 in Held. These fit pretty well. They're a little bit snugger on the fingers than, especially the Alpine Stars, or the Guide. And I really notice that the most on the thumb, where I'm kind of pushing the edge. Thankfully, it is mainly stretch material on the top, so it's got a little bit of give, but still, I would have loved just a smidge more room. And kind of the same thing over the top, but I've worn these for hours, and they're fine. I wasn't left hurting from being constricted. Moving from fit into comfort, kind of on the same lines, agility is pretty good on these. Again, all of this kind of light colored stuff is stretch, a little bit of like a polyester stretch mesh. You have really nice stretch areas that also breathe here on the fingers and on the back of the palm where the knuckle protector is. So it's got some space to roll without pulling. The thumb, again, is pretty much all stretch material with this leather bit here to prevent tearing. This is from a, like, if you were taking gloves off, you can see where the pressure points are after riding for a while. For me, this is the one kind of pressure area, is this bit of leather here. The seams I can see cut in a bit, and on the inside, some of the other gloves are done a little differently or run stretch there. I would have preferred to have seen that, but that's a very personal fit issue. From a breathability perspective, that's where these are phenomenal. So you have this massive vented knuckle guard, which drives air in and over top and through your palm, which it really does seem to actually work. It does seem to flow air through it. You have these vented TPR protectors over top of your fingers that drive air in through the mesh. You have all this mesh that flows air freely. You have perforated inner leather on the fingers. You have stretch mesh on the fourchettes to drive air through. And then you have an entirely ventilated palm. These have got to be some of the most ventilated gloves out there, period. And I really notice that when it's well over 90 out and humid, I'm not thinking about my palms being sweaty. That is despite these being an unlined palm. It's just your fingers and the kangaroo leather here. And that's another Held thing. Held likes to use kangaroo leather to give you very thin, very high tactile feeling palms. And you notice it here. You do have touchscreen functionality on the fingertips. You have a double layer of leather all on the outside and across the primary wear areas. You have a double layer across the outside of the pinky and all the way across the palm. And these do a decent job of giving you some reinforcement and impact absorption on the very fragile, impact-prone areas. They're using super fabric here to give you some lower friction to hopefully, as you can kind of see, not catch on pavement, it just slide, as well as abrasion resistance. And then you have behind that a pretty solid amount of temper foam to absorb some of the initial impact. And it does have a decent amount of absorption right on that very fragile scaphoid area to help out. Not as good as something like a Knox SPS setup, but better than not having anything at all there. So that's why I'm happy to keep these, because it does have that. It has a huge TPR protector over the pointy part of your wrist bone here. That's quite nice. It's going to help if you go down and hit something. At least you won't be as bruised there. And then, you know, underneath this big knuckle guard, you have a fair bit of temper foam to help cushion the impact should you smack down. Plus, I think there's some flexibility here that might also help. What else on these? Well, and you got a little bit of a protectors here like most people do. What do I not like? I really talked a little bit about the fit. It's a little bit tighter than I prefer. That's a very personal thing, so I can't really ding it for being slightly tight on the fingers. That is just me. And it's not so much I don't want to wear it. To me, the big thing is, although they have done a gusset here, so you don't have a flopped open bit, it's always going to be a little bit tight. When they did the Velcro on this fastener here, it's normal Velcro. The other gloves I've been evaluating recently have used micro Velcro, which won't catch on a sleeve or fabric, you know, that you're wearing nearly as easily. So they're using normal Velcro, so this will still catch. And they didn't sew it all the way to the edge of this little fastener flap. So if you're, you know, kind of gathering it together, you really don't have a ton of fastening going on. You have this whole bit at the end that's just kind of there. I know it's probably there for grabbing, but I wish they'd done micro Velcro and ran it all the way to the end, the way like the racers did, for instance. The liner is very comfortable. They've lined the whole backhand with the 37.5 fabric technology. It's supposed to help regulate your temperature to keep you to that like optimum thing. Sure. I can't, you know, I haven't worn these with like, let's say Coolmax or something to do a A-B comparison. I will say it seems perfectly comfortable. The unlined palm does make things a little bit sticky to pull off if you've been out sweating for a while. But it's smooth enough. It's not as bad as some leathers I've worn. And because it's unlined, you do get excellent feel on the controls. So that's the Held Sambia Pro. I think in the US they're quite a bit of money. High 100s. One more protection thing. This is something that we primarily saw Dainese do for years. They added in a little like Pinkie catch. So if your pinky goes to snag, this little bit here hypothetically helps to prevent it from bending all the way back and snapping and you having an incredibly bad day. I know, like I said, Dainese's been doing this for forever on the race gloves. Kind of cool. At the end of the day, for the price point, I think it's a lot. Held in the US tends to run a little expensive. I'm not going to lie, I ordered these from overseas. I was pretty confident in my sizing. The euro in summer of 2022 is on par with the US dollar, so I ordered this and some other stuff to try out, and I love them. These are going to be my gloves for this season and hopefully a while to come. So they get my personal recommendation. Whether or not they fit you or they meet what you're looking for is up to you. But I think they're an awesome option you should definitely consider.